Manchester United 3, Bodo Glimt 2, and a first win for Ruben Amorim in his first home game in charge of Manchester United. And a 3 points that was just needed by Manchester United. You know, a really, really important 3 points to move us up the table in relation to trying to get qualification automatically out of the Europa League group stage. We've got some interesting points to go through, and I want to hear your opinions as well in the comment section below. Please do smash a like on the video, hit subscribe if you're new. Let's jump straight into it. So first of all, we're going to talk about Rasmus Højlund, and he is back among the goals in what was a very, very good performance against Bodo Glimt last night. And as you can see, you know, the majority of people are giving him man of the match, and I was no exception. I thought he played absolutely fantastic in the game last night. We know that service is required for Rasmus Højlund, and while the service was not great last night for him, I don't think it was anything exceptional. I thought he worked really, really well and took his goals really well when they did fall for him. If we look at some of his stats, obviously, you know, when we're talking about service, we look at his expected goals, and while his expected goals were only 0.65 in the game, he did end up scoring 2 goals and of course got the assist as well. We did see, of course, and hear from manager Ruben Amorim. He says he needs to pass the ball a lot quicker when he is in possession, and I think that is something that, you know, we've touched on quite a bit on this channel as well over the last few weeks and months, and we can see it here in relation to the amount of times that he actually lost possession was 6 down here. And look, you would expect your forward players to lose the ball a little bit more than, say, a defender or a defensive midfielder who's probably not going to be pressed as quickly as a forward would be. But however, you know what I mean, it's goals that matter more than anything else for Rasmus Højlund, and getting the 2 goals last night and getting man of the match showed a real good, I suppose, talking points in relation to what we can expect going forward. A lot of talk around, do we need another striker to come in? And I think we do need another striker to come in. Rasmus Højlund is the only real out-and-out number 9 that we've got within our team. And while I think, you know, when you've got the likes of Joshua Zirkzee, who's self-proclaimed not a number 9 and 9.5, it's pretty clear that Marcus Rashford isn't the striker either, and the manager said so during the week as well. You know, I think it's quite clear that we do need another striker. But Rasmus Højlund, we see his heat map here. You know, the majority of the time he did spend in the box, you know, in around that penalty spot, the edge of the 6-yard box. It's where you want your strikers to be. And if we look here at the heat map from him over the entirety of the season, I think last night we seen a more enthusiastic player and a player who wants to get into the box more, and that has to be credited to the manager. You know, the manager did say that he wants, you know, Rasmus Højlund to get towards that front post an awful lot more when balls are coming in, and we've seen it last night as well. So really, really positive stuff there from Rasmus Højlund. Secondly, let's talk about Manuel Ugarte, and what a really good performance from him last night again. In my opinion, he should be the first name on the team sheet the majority of the time for Ruben Amorim, and I think that will be the case as games go forward. Ruben Amorim knows he can trust him. He played for him before, and Manuel Ugarte pretty much made his name under Ruben Amorim at Sporting Lisbon. Now, when we look at last night's game, obviously we've seen you know, he was playing obviously as one of the number 6s here, but he played alongside Bruno Fernandes, and Bruno Fernandes, we know, likes to wander a little bit and maybe is not so structured in relation to his positioning, and I think Manuel Ugarte done really, really well last night to kind of make up for Bruno Fernandes having not a free role, but being a little bit more adventurous in his moves forward. If we look at Manuel Ugarte last night and the heat map specifically, we can see the majority of his game was played in that right, you know, a little bit more advanced. And we've seen Man United, of course, against the opposition looking to press quite high. So I think that's why we're seeing, you know, a lot of his heat map being in this more advanced right-sided position. Now, if we put Bruno Fernandes's heat map alongside him, we see that Bruno Fernandes is a lot more advanced when it comes to pressing the opposition and trying to get involved more than anything else. So, you know, I think it was quite clear that Manuel Ugarte had a lot of work to do last night. I thought his touches were low. So if we look at Manuel Ugarte, his touches, 77 touches in the game. However, you do also have to realise when he's playing alongside the likes of Bruno Fernandes, who's going to get on the ball a lot more because he's a more advanced player and a more attacking player. Bruno touched the ball nearly 20 times more than him, and both of them playing pretty much in the same position. However, the touches that Manuel Ugarte did get and the time he did spend on the ball was fantastic. His pass accuracy yesterday was 92%. And from a player whose, attributes are mainly based around maybe shutting down the opposition playing, we're seeing some really good attributes towards him going and getting involved and being really, really successful in terms of advancing the ball up the field and getting on the ball. So it's something that I was really, really happy with yesterday. Like I said, Manuel Ugarte is going to be key to the way we play under Ruben Amorim in terms of the 3-2-2-1, basically with two wing backs. So I was really happy with what we seen last night. And we know, obviously, under the Ruud van Nistelrooy era that him and Casemiro played really well together. And I think we'll probably see a lot more of him and Casemiro play alongside each other as the game progresses and as Ruben Amorim understands who his best team are. I don't think we'll see Bruno Fernandes an awful lot in that number 6 role. I think we'll probably see Kobbie Mainoo come back in and give you that more grounded, defensive, deep-lying playmaker role. But as of last night, I thought Manuel Ugarte had an absolutely fantastic game, and he was up there with one of the best players on the pitch. Now, next up, transitions, and it was an area of concern last night. As much as there was positives last night, there was a couple of areas where Manchester United looked a little bit vulnerable, and the majority of that time was down to transitions. While the majority of it, like I said, was positive, we did look a little bit vulnerable on the counterattacks. Both goals came from breakaways by the opposition, and I think maybe the lack of understanding yet when it comes to Ruben Amorim's tactics and the new setup is probably one of the big reasons why we've seen United being a little bit vulnerable when it comes to these areas. I think the main area we have to look at is Martinez getting sucked out for both goals. And I think the main reason for it, and we touched on it briefly in our last point, was Bruno Fernandes getting sucked up the field. Bruno Fernandes, as we've seen over here by his heat map, he is playing an awful lot of his game in this area, in the forward left channel up here, when he is supposed to be playing in the 6. So I think that did leave a lot of space in this area for Bodo Glimt to kind of take advantage of. And we've seen a little bit of it with Ipswich as well, where I think was it Hutchison maybe that was dropping into this position. So basically what was happening, for both goals really, was that Martinez was getting sucked out to the player that Bruno Fernandes was leaving behind, and a ball was being played, especially for the second one, into this position. And we know then that Malacia just gets beaten for pace when it comes to the second goal for from the wing back. However, the second time we seen Bruno getting sucked, or for the first goal we seen Bruno getting sucked into this position. Manuel Ugarte is trying to cover this area, and in fairness to Ugarte, he does lose his runner for the forward ball into this position. Now, look, Martinez is out, so De Ligt is covering across, and a ball just gets laid off here. And you have to say, for the first goal, it was a world-class finish out of the Bodo Glimt player who scored it. So again, look, like I said, Bruno Fernandes playing in that 6, he is going to get adventurous and he is going to move out. And that did mean that Martinez stepped out to try and close down. And I think as the games go on and as the players and the squad get used to playing this role, I think we will see more discipline. I would much rather Martinez allow a player have the ball out here when Bruno Fernandes is caught than stepping out to it, because we know then a little 1-2 player in behind and then you're in. So again, like I said, I think we will see a lot more structure to this, as you know, Ruben Amorim finds out who the best players for each position are, and as the players get used to what he's expecting and what he wants from them, I think we will see a lot more solidity and a lot more compactness. The concern is you're going up against the likes of Arsenal and Man City now in the next couple of weeks, and they will exploit them areas an awful lot more. So it's something we do need to improve on quite quickly. However, it was probably the only negative you could say about last night. Other than that, it was positives. Now, next up, tactical tweaks. One of the big criticisms that we had around Erik ten Hag and his tenure at Manchester United was his inability to change mid-game. It always tended to be like-for-like changes. We never changed formation. We never changed in-game tactics. It was always, it was always Shaw for Malacia, or it was Highland for Rashford, or it was Anthony for Sancho, whatever the case may be, Garnacho for Rashford. It was always like-for-like changes. There was never any in-game changes. However, Amorim is not afraid to make these changes, both tactically and personnel-wise. And we did see that in the game last night against Bodo Glimt. Now, obviously, the main change that we seen in the game was at half-time when Diogo Dalot came on to replace Malacia on this left-hand side. Now, look, I mean, Malacia, like we said, first game in 550 days for Manchester United, so you can understand why he's not lasting 90 minutes. However, I do think that change was more tactical than it was, just like for like personnel change. And the reason for it was the lack of real progression and the lack of, I suppose, attacking prowess on that left-hand side. And what we done, let me just set back up the formation here. So what we done basically, or what Amorim done, was when Dalot came on in possession, Manchester United pushed Dalot on into Garnacho's position. And naturally then that pushed Garnacho wide. And it meant that Garnacho was getting isolated against his fullback an awful lot more. Now, in the first half, we did see Malacia get into these areas here. However, the final ball just wasn't good enough. The crosses weren't good. And again, look, this is not a criticism on Malacia. First game in so long, he's bound to be a little bit rusty. But what happened was we went with a back three, and Dalot, like I said, pushed up into this area here. And Garnacho then was high and wide, able to receive that ball from Martinez. And we see Martinez put the ball into Garnacho a number of different times. And there was one in particular where he played a ball right through the channel for Garnacho to run on, and he just pulled his shot wide. Look, I thought this was very, very successful in game, and it kind of dismantled and kind of threw Bodo Glimt off the trail a little bit, and it meant that on the other side, we seen obviously Anthony was here, Mazraoui was advancing as well. We had Mason Mount and Highland, and they were able to make up this kind of little triangle, if all the world, or between the three of them, and that's how we saw the goal coming from, down this side. Ugarte stepped up as well, Mount with a lovely flick, and we got the ball into Highland. And once we did score that goal and go 3-2 up, Ruben Amorim was very quick to go back to his traditional 4-3-3. Before he did that though, however, when we were out of possession, Dalot automatically dropped back in, and it was good work rate out of Dalot. Garnacho came back into his number 10 role, and we looked to shore up that middle, and Dalot went back, and we made a 4 at the back out of possession. So these are the kind of in-game changes that we're speaking about with Amorim, that's new and refreshing to Manchester United and Manchester United fans that we didn't see under Erik ten Hag. And once we did go 3-2 up, then it was straight back to normal. Dalot went back as a wing back, Anthony was there, Garnacho tucked back in, and we went back to the traditional 3-4-3 that we're used to. So these in-game changes are very, very exciting as a Manchester United fan, and they're well needed, because the more you, I suppose, play the same formation and the same system, the easier it is for the opposition to figure you out and to break you down. And I think it was very, very good to see that from Ruben Amorim yesterday, and I think it was a big reason why we went on and won that game. And finally, progress. Okay, so progress is a big word here, and something that we really do need to see from this Manchester United team. Like we said, an awful lot of information being taken on board in a quick period of time, but you're mid-season. You don't have a pre-season to try and implement your plans. I thought the performance last night was a lot more assured than it was against Ipswich. I mean, again, if we go back to our player ratings, Rasmus Højlund, 9.4. Everybody bar Matthias de Ligt and Anthony were above a 7, and Onana, I suppose, really couldn't do anything about the 2 goals. Mason Mount played really well. Garnacho did. Bruno, Ugarte. There were some very assured performances there. And look, I mean, while the opposition last night were not the strongest, and there are going to be tougher tests ahead this season, United dominated the game from minute 1 to minute 90. The improvement was clear to see, and just in one game, I thought we looked a little bit out of sync against Ipswich on the weekend, and it was night and day in comparison to the game last night against Bodo Glimt. Now, again, look, we do have to say, opposition, there will be tougher tests ahead. I suppose there's still a lot of work to do, and Amram is still trying to find out who his best 11 are. But one of the main positives I think we're seeing is that we're seeing multiple players play in different positions. Again, if we go back to what we seen last night, Anthony playing as a wing back, Delors obviously came on, Malacia was there, Luke Shaw came on and played as a centre half instead of Lisandro Martinez at one stage. Obviously we're seeing Garnacho in that number 10 role, Mount has stepped in there, Bruno in the 6, which is a new role for him as well. So we're seeing an awful lot of different players play in different roles, and it's making and creating competition within the team, and I think that can only be a healthy thing. Under Eric Ten Hag, again, like I said, it was like for like changes all the time, and players tended to stick where they naturally played. The manager is willing to take risks as well. And there will be upsets along the way. He has mentioned this a number of times. There will be a little bit of pain. However, I've said this an awful lot. I would rather the manager stick with his game plan, and in 6 months' time when the summer transfer window rolls around, you implement your plans then to improve the squad, and the players who fall by the wayside. And in at this time next year, then you'll see a vastly improved team and squad. The thing about it is as well is that he is not going to change his ways. Okay, he is sticking by his principles, and it's up to these players to either get on board or get going elsewhere, because he's not hanging around for you. And I think he's got the backing now of Ineos and the hierarchy there at Manchester United. He's got the backing of the fans, and he will have the backing of any player that buys in to his tactics, because I can see a big improvement, and it's getting a little bit exciting already. So I'm really, really happy, and look, 3 points on the board, happy days, and we move up to, I think, 12th in the league table. We're only 1 point off the automatic qualifications. So a big few games left in the Europa League. Bring on Everton on the weekend on the back of a good performance. Let me know your comments. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, guys, on all of the talking points and any new talking points that you have. Please do smash a like on the video. Hit subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.